Welcome to the next episode of HR Mavericks. I'm the host, Garrett Justice, and today I'm joined by Joseph Ifiegbu, who is the co-founder and CEO at Equitable, an HR analytics platform. Joseph, how you doing today?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Hey, we are super excited to have you on the show and really dive into this topic. And I think it's perfect because you're an expert really in this space of the topic that we're going to dive into in a minute around people analytics. I know, your company right now is an HR analytics platform, but even previously, before you started your company, you were head of HR technology at Snap, worked in people analytics at WeWork, and really started your career as a researcher and data scientist. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. I think things around math and statistics were some of the things that I've always just gravitated towards, right? Like there's this whole thing of, and that's always been in my head where, you can get to the answers if you have the numbers, right? And I always like this thing of, I was always been like this solution kind of oriented person, whereby I like to kind of solve problems. And so, really, worked as a data scientist my whole career. But what really attracted me to people analytics was the fact that like people are more complex than marketing data or e-commerce, right? You're dealing with decisions that people make on a daily basis. And so I definitely lucky to get into HR, and ever since I got into HR and took my data skills there, I've not looked back since. I've always just enjoyed that journey, and reach really, during our time at WeWork, really led us to have the actual idea for Equitable and actually create it there. And so, just really excited to be here and, to talk more about how we can use data to help organizations. So
well, we're super excited to have you on. Tell us a little bit more about Equitable and what your company does.
Yeah, so we help organizations make decisions using data about their employees, right? There is this gap between data and insights. There is, right? Every day you have a new tool, a new platform being launched, or a hiring platform, an engagement platform, and this platform, and that platform, right? However, there's still this gap when it comes to using insights to make decisions, making data-driven decisions about your employees, which, by the way, they are your most important resource, right? Like you can have a great product. Your employees are the ones that actually build that for you. Your employees actually know that with you, right? And so if you can use data to make decisions about like our product, why not people? All right. And so our platform really we sit on top of the different HR tools. We bring in the data into our platform and we deliver insights to decision makers to make the best decisions. So decisions around like hiring, engagement, diversity, compensation, and so on.
Yeah. Love it. I think I can definitely see the value in that. So, you've kind of talked about this a little bit already as you kind of shared your background, but I thought it was kind of interesting looking at your LinkedIn profile and kind of your career background when we first connected. And you can definitely see your career has gravitated more and more to the HR space, right? You started, as really a researcher and data scientist, and then gradually moved more and more into people analytics and the HR space. So tell me a little bit more about what drew you to that intersection between data and analytics and HR and people work.
Yeah. So I was working as a data scientist, and one of the last role before I actually got into the HR space was I worked as a data scientist in the basically e-commerce retail space. And my job was really to understand consumer behaviors, which affected the placement of products in the store. So I worked at Toys R Us at the time. And so we would do this analysis, for example, that would say, well, if a mom buys baby formula, what's the probability they're going to buy a pacifier? And we'll see the buying patterns between like the moms at the store. Like, so there's a high correlation that they will buy this and buy the other one. So let's actually place the pacifiers next to the formula in the store at the eye level. Stuff like that. We do like cool. So where things were placed were actually like we use analytics to determine that. And so at the time when I was leaving the role, like I was like, okay, looking for my next role. I was looking at different jobs at the time, and I saw people analytics. I'm like, people analytics, like, what is this? Because I am technically doing something that has to do with people and decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I started reading, I'm like, oh, this is HR.
Mm-hmm.
Interest. Like, I'm like, okay, well, it has to do with people and decisions there. So, and I applied, and I somehow got that role, that job. And from there, I just started learning about the HR space. And again, look, domains, right, are different, but the concept of analytics is the same, right? So
Yeah.
I just brought my analytics, just the experience I had doing analytics in other industries to that. And I had to just learn the HR domain. But once I learned that, oh my goodness, I was like, there's so much. I realized there's so much green space. There's so much we can do.
Yeah.
Organizations be better. And that's really how I got into it. And I've not looked back.
Well, I love that. And, going back to exactly what you said at the beginning, for every company, I would say for at least the vast majority of companies, the biggest expense for that company is people, right?
Yep.
And the biggest way to create a successful company, regardless of your size, is making sure that you can really invest in helping your people succeed. So, I mean, going back to, that comment that you made, I think that that's absolutely true. And when you can apply the data and analytics to help arguably the most important part of your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a real impact there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Like, people don't realize this. It's like, oh, well, it's a people decision. I feel it in my gut. We should do this. Well, yeah, your gut, it could be wrong. Like beyond, it's like this concept of like what, beyond like 120 people, you start to make systems. Like we can't really know what everyone is going through. You can't really know everyone by name. You start to need systems to actually measure and give you feedback. And so, yeah, like I think the days of trying to like, just gut decisions.
Yeah.
Like people, those days are long over. Like for you to be competitive in this day and age with this whole, great migration and everything, and you want to make sure your employees are engaged, as satisfied, a happier organization, you need data. You need data for that. So
yeah. Very cool. Well, I'm excited to dive into this topic of really just people analytics and pick your brain on this a little bit more. But, before I do, the question I know that is on my mind because of who our audience is for this podcast, a lot of times we have, small business owners or HR people. Many times they are ones that are the local businesses with kind of deskless workforces. And so when we're talking about people analytics, like, the question naturally comes to my mind, and I'm sure many of those listening also have similar questions. Is this something that's only for large companies or really tech savvy companies? Or when it comes to people analytics, is there really an application for this for all businesses?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, beyond the setting, in terms of number of employees, beyond like, by the time you start hitting like, honestly, when you start over 10, 20, 30 employees, you start needing some sort of analytics, some sort of measurement, right? So like people analytics is not it's not only focused on like tech companies or tech savvy companies. No, it's people analytics is about people.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's focused on the people. So if you need to kind of understand what, if you need to understand your employees, or you need to understand like what data you need to help, to make decisions, you need people analytics, right? So for example, you're a 20% company, and if you're hiring, your first, I don't know, head of sales or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what should we pay our head of sales? So you have to go and get some data in the market about, okay, what's the market value? So that's analytics, literally. It's not like a complex ML algorithm, literally probability, averages, benchmarks. Those are all analytics.
Yeah.
So yes, any company really that have people that need some sort of data that's pretty much analytics.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's absolutely true. And so I love the example you shared because it's true. I think a lot of times small business owners or HR people, if they don't come from a data and analytics background, they can feel overwhelmed and intimidated when thinking about this stuff. But exactly like what you said, they're looking at data all the time when it comes to salaries and benchmarks and everything else. And so really it's just, how do you do that better? And that's what we really want to talk about today. So first question I have for you as we kind of dive into this topic is, it seems like the people related issues that organizations face, they take a long time to change, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to try and change culture in a company or things that are really related to people, it's usually not an overnight thing, right? Yeah. So I guess to really start off, why do you think that is?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. So I think one of the issues is people related issues are seen as HR issues, right? Right? Like, oh, they see HR at the head of the EI will solve this. Like, they should handle that.
Mm-hmm.
Not true. Nowhere is it true. Like, how is that true? Right? Like, right? Like, it's a company issue. And so I think a lot of times why companies take long is that they assign this to HR specifically, whereby it should be something that every executive leaders across the organization should rally around and be like, okay, well, how do we solve this issue? And that's one of the big things I've seen within organizations. And a lot of times when now, obviously, the HR person, HR has to take on that, and inevitably they end up not doing it well, failing or something. Then they go back, then it's not like, okay, well, this panic, and then time has passed. And then maybe sometimes you have to bring in some kind of consulting firm into the organization to kind of figure out what the issues are. Time, next thing you know, it's been 2 years. There's been some sort of lawsuit, and then they're trying to figure out how they can like restructure the organization, right? Mm-hmm. When from the beginning, everything that has to do with people should be a decision that comes from the top, and that a decision that leaders should be involved in, whereby it's like, no, this should be an OKR for you.
Yeah.
Right? How engages your team, head of engineering? How engages your team, head of sales? How engages your team, head of marketing? How, what is your diversity breakout in your organizations? These are the things that should be honed in on from the beginning. Yeah. But unfortunately, a lot of companies think that people issues are HR issues, and it's not true. It's a company issue.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And so what I'm hearing you say too is, a lot of times there can be confusion in companies in terms of who owns this issue and what do we actually do about it. And so as a result, it can kind of stunt like action, right? There's kind of a confusion. People are kind of frozen at times. They don't know what to do. They think it's someone else that should own it. And so how can really leaders make sure that in their organization, there's a bias towards action where there's more clarity in terms of who owns things and they focus on getting things done?
Simple answer, tie it to your pay. I know it sounds insane. It sounds insane, but like that's what it is. Tie it to the pay. Like if you tie stuff to, it's money, right? People want to eat, right?
Yeah.
right. So if you tie a certain objective, if you tie a certain thing to someone's, you're not getting this large bonus that executives get all the time. You're not getting it if you don't hit this goals. And I've seen some CEOs do that, and I loved it because I'm like, no, okay, you have this goal, right? Your engagement score is this. You have this attrition, or actually you're hiring. You're hiring 100 people this year. Well, you currently have 20% women on your team. You're hiring 100 people this year or whatever. Well, like we want you to increase that diversity number from 20% to 25% or 30%.
Yeah.
And it's tied to your bonus.
Yeah.
Right? If you do that, you will see very quickly that executives are going to start like, okay, let's get this thing done. Right? Because they want their bonus. Like that's just the truth of the matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But if there is no skin in the game, if it doesn't affect something, why are they going to be inspired to actually get it done, right? So one of the ways is tie it to the bonus. That's one of the ways I've seen it done, and I've seen it done well. And then you saw the executives talking to their teams. Okay, let's set these goals. What are the timelines? Let's track those kind of things, right? So like the bonus, and then second thing is just like you need to set goals. It needs to be transparent, and you need to track it and hold people accountable for that as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Not just setting a goal. We're having this goal for this year, and then you discuss it at the end of the year. So how do we hit the goal? No. Every month, every quarter, where are we with this? Why haven't we hit this goal? Yeah. Right. Knowing that, making sure that people take this seriously. So tracking those things and making people executives incentivize, I think is some of the ways that you can really have that bias towards action.
No, I think that's a great point. And, one of the things that is just became clear as you're talking about this is it sounds like it has to start at the top. And when I say the top, I mean the top, it means the CEO. Like if you're going to hold your executive or your leadership team to hitting change within their organizations, like the example you shared of if you care as an organization that you have a higher percentage of women in your organization, if that's a metric that you need to improve, right? It has to start with the CEO tying it to something that people care about, like pay, and then holding each other accountable to it so that they're constantly following up on it. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think like it has to absolutely come from the top, right? Like it has to be the top of like CEOs and then, some organizations, obviously like, like the direct executive suite there. But really like, I think if an organization has setting goals regards to things around DEI or any people related goals, right? I know the buck stops at the CEO, right? So if they have to really want that to happen, they have to take that seriously. They have to demand excellence from their executive team and their leadership teams for those things to happen, right? And if they don't, right, why should the executive team do that? And if the executive team doesn't, why should their own leadership team do that? And then it just keeps going down like that, right? Yeah. And so it has to be that accountability from the top, but also at the same time, like I also feel that there's also this reverse whereby like if we're coming as an organization and saying, hey, we want to hit XYZ goals, right? Then they also like leaders should also manage up, right? As a director, like ask your VPs, like, okay, well, how are we going to hit these goals? Manage up as well, hold them accountable and saying, look, these are things that we have to do as an organization. We are going to be on the ground operationalizing this, but what do we, like, we need this XYZ from you, right? Yeah. We also have to manage. So there's that two-way relationship, I think, as well. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. And so part of the reason why I'm asking about this change is, as we talked about data at the very beginning, usually data should hopefully lead to insights like you talked about. Doesn't always, right? But it should hopefully lead to insights that can help you as an organization enact change within your organization and improvement. So talk to us a little bit more about that. What role does data have in really enacting change across an organization?
Yeah. I mean, data is they call it oil, right? These days, right? But I think data has a massive role to play, but not just data, but what you get out of the data, right? Again, like I always shout this at the mountaintop for anyone that cares to listen. You cannot change what you don't measure, right? And so, if you don't know what you don't know, if you don't know there are issues, then what is there to change? For all you know, everything is gravy, right? So by actually measuring, by taking the data from your engagement surveys, from your pay, compensation, from like your day-to-day transactional data, from your hiring, you can start to understand and tell a story and get a cohesive story in terms of the health of your organization. And in so doing, you can now tease out what those insights are and see, okay, well, where are we doing well? And where do we actually need to improve? And once you can see what you need to improve, then you can actually take steps and set goals to improve it, right? But if you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to improve anything. And that's a lot of things that I see some mistakes organizations make, is that they sometimes don't even want to measure because they are afraid of what they will find. I'm here to tell you, ignorance is not an excuse for not doing the right thing, right? I think now employees, they are demanding more. They're demanding more of their employers. Now boards and investors are demanding more from companies, saying, no, like, we can't keep going like this. Things have to change.
Yeah. So customers even demand it too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Like, they're setting customers that even we wouldn't do business with if we look and you don't even have a diverse team, or they're setting things that, or we see a leadership team and it's just the same people, like all men, and we don't like what is happening here? Like, it's just setting things like at this point, like it's just no excuse. Like, you have a leadership team, there's 10 of you, and it's all men that went to Yale, nothing against Yale, but it's like, come on, like, you could have gotten a hope, like, I'm not trying to be like, not like a token, no, like, there are very good people out there, very good women, people of color that you could have hired. So what is wrong? Why aren't you doing that? Right? And so, yeah, so I think ignorance is not an excuse. And so I think companies need to shred this idea of like, oh, we're afraid of what we'll find, and actually measure so you can actually make the experiences for your employees better.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You said you can't change what you don't measure, right? And I think that's absolutely true. So it starts with starting to measure it, and then it can hopefully give you insights and ideas on ways to enact change. So I love that. So I want to bring this back a little bit to what we talked about at the beginning, which is again, the audience for this podcast often is small businesses and small business owners and HR people. So how can organizations, especially these small businesses, use data and analytics to enact change for the better? I mean, a lot of times these small businesses, they might have, a small leadership team, a solo HR person. Where can they really get started when it comes to people analytics and data to enact change for the better?
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from using Equitable, of course, but I mean, like that's something we do. So I'll just talk a bit about it, and I'll go to some things that they can also do. So really, I mean, for us, why we built Equitable was because they're building infrastructure within organizations, right? And building teams is actually quite expensive, right? Like when I built my team at WeWork, it took about 2 years and $2 million, right? It's really beautiful. So not every company has that kind of time or resources really to kind of to build that. And so we've built this like very just an incredible platform that enables smaller companies to be able to be onboarded very quickly. And you don't have to hire a massive team, because again, like you have a team of experts that in the people analytics space that actually built this. So you can actually we know exactly what you're looking for because we've been through it ourselves. And so we're able to help small organizations just get on board and connect to these systems and actually help them tell a story very simply, very quickly, right? Help them curate that story. So that's the one way. But again, like if you're in a place where you're saying, hey, we don't even have any sort of system at all. Analytics starts with someone saying that they want to understand what's happening. So you can even just use Excel sheets, right? Just okay, well, you have 20 people in your organization. Okay, well, great. Okay, well, you have needs of 20 people. Okay, what are they paid? What is, you run your engagement score, how your engagement service, what are the responses? And then you can just use simple like averages, that. Just I'm trying to understand, right? Like what is happening. You can even just start there to start telling the story. And then as you grow and you feel like, okay, you're in a place where you want to use Equitable, then you can always come and use us.
Yeah.
But it really just starts with that. Like there's so much, just like you see a lot of Excel templates and things like to help with different answers to questions. So you can really start with that and then go from there. So I would just say it's never too early to start. Just start with what you have. And then, we can always. And also, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me too. So we always have to help anyone as well. So that's also something.
Well, that's awesome. It's very generous of you. So I love hearing that, because I think it can sound scary and complex, I think, to when we're talking about people analytics for especially people who don't come from a data background. But if they haven't started, what I heard you say is just start measuring something and start asking questions like, what's our breakdown in percentage of men to women? What's our pay? Our average pay? Is it to seem equitable? And even if it's just an Excel sheet, start asking the questions and tracking the data. And that's a great place to start, because you'll probably find something in that will give you a hint at where you need to enact change for the better across your organization. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's just start somewhere. And then, you know what that does too, when you start, even, those early little beginnings, there's something about it that helps you build a culture of data and transparency. There's something about that. You start at 20 people, you start doing those things, asking the right questions, putting those things in place. It helps you build a foundation for when you're 50 and when you're 100 and hopefully 2, 3, 4,000, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, 100%.
I love that point too, because, so we've heard in the world, we know the power of data. That's become very, very clear. But I think a lot of times local businesses too, that are your mom and pop shops or your restaurants or, whatever it is, they can sometimes think that, data is just for the the tech companies out there or the big companies out there, but we all know the power of data and analytics. And it's not just for those types of companies. The power is for any company who starts to track their analytics and apply the data and insights to really enact change, like we talked about today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Data for everyone. Data for all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Data for all. Love it. Well, Joseph, this has been a great conversation. And I think that there's a lot that listeners can take away and start to apply in their own businesses. As we kind of wrap up here, one question I like to ask a lot of people is, again, our HR Mavericks community that we're building, which this podcast is a part of, really the mission there is just democratizing HR knowledge and best practices. Mm-hmm. And so if you have one suggestion that our listeners should do to improve their HR people functions this week, what would that be?
That's a good one. I think one of the things that people can do is listen. I think we are in a time whereby there's a lot of information out there. I think people want you to hear all their opinion, and they are right. Mm-hmm. And the art of listening is almost becoming lost, right? Whereby you can actually listen and see what the other person is saying. And so I feel like organizations should listen to their employees, because again, the best ideas don't necessarily all come from the executive team. Mm-hmm. Like the executive team don't have the seat of knowledge, right? Ideas that can change your organization can come from any level in the organization. And so there has to be some sort of humility from leaders and people partners, and to be able to listen and hear what they're saying, and potentially, maybe you might actually find something that will help your organization be better. So one of the things I would say this week is listen.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's such a great, tangible takeaway that everyone can probably do better. So great suggestion. Last question I have for you is, if there are listeners that want to get in contact with you or learn more about your company, Equitable, what's the best way for them to do that?
There's two ways. So you can just follow me on LinkedIn, add me on LinkedIn. So Joseph Ifiegbu, and then we'll have the name on the bottom. So you can follow LinkedIn there, or you can also just visit our website at equitable.com, and there's a form there. Just take 2 seconds. You can just put in your email, and then we'll follow up with you as well. We always have to connect with people and get to chat about the product and see how we can potentially collaborate or help. So those two ways you can do it.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. Again, for listeners out there, if you want to get in touch with Joseph, you can connect with him on LinkedIn or visit him on their website. And we will drop the links to both his LinkedIn profile and website in the show notes, so you can find those there. Joseph, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to join the podcast today and share your insights and knowledge. Hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. You too. I appreciate it.